Everybody, this is 1,196 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. Let me get on Facebook, make sure that I'm on, and we can get started because Richard didn't just go missing; he did not go AWOL. Um, he, that means he never was a deserter, and we have everything to corroborate that, including the federal criminal database that he's never been on, and also a yellow Interpol. Um, if he had any kind of crime record, if he was wanted for anything, he would be a red Interpol. So what happened to him? He was code redded. He was code red, and we're going to talk about that today because it's in conjunction with what happened there at 3905 Bliss Avenue, 3705 Bliss Avenue, um, and many different actors and uh, players, I guess players for the man behind the curtain, or the people behind the curtain, the conductors of all of this, because of a criminal enterprise being run on Fort Bliss. I really believe that. Everything points to that. And as hard as that is to believe for our country, well, I don't think that's hard to believe for our country anymore. But Fort Bliss running a criminal enterprise, and all the evidence is pointing to that. So let's get started. So, Richard, 1,196 days. Um, you know, I would say add some days to that. Um, there's always been a timeline problem just because of deleted information during that time, before that time, just now we don't delete at all. We haven't deleted, we've collected and collected. But, when you think everything is okay, yeah, no, I have a good phone now. I have a good phone. And I know there's records and all of that, and you can download everything and um, in the cloud. And there's a problem with Richard's timeline. And so, yes, you can add a few days to that. So the big news, and I'm sorry for coming on late again, but just we're gonna have to uh, add some things earlier in the day because people are saying, "Oh my gosh, it's so late." Yeah, absolutely, it is late. Should I start doing 2 live streams a day? Maybe I'll do a short live stream in the morning and then one at night, because if we get the public's attention, that is what is going to change the direction of everything. The live streams are just that important. And so sharing it is very, very important. Thank you so much. And coming on to watch is very important too. So thank you so much. Um, we couldn't do it without you. Absolutely. That is how we are going to get even more support. And right now, we're getting quite a bit of support from the institutions because they are also putting together the pieces of this case, because they were lied to. So many of them were lied to about Richard. And so let's start on that. Um, this January 9th, 2020, and I think Belen can, maybe she can comment or she can tell us different or whatever. But we're hearing from, our sources that she was the one there at that night, the January 27th, 2020. We absolutely know from her testimony that she called Richard up and asked him to take her to this party. Okay, so we absolutely know that. We absolutely know that they were already, um, had gone through their contentious time, and that means that Richard had already, by January 27th, 2020, reported to the Child Protective Services on her, and more, and more. Okay, because we know that Richard said things were so bad. Okay, way before then. In 2019, he was saying that already. He was already telling us he did not want to go green to gold. He did not want to get E5. He, he just wanted to get out. So he went from the aspiring distinguished honor graduate, just ready to make a career out of the military. And really, he said that to all of us. He was ready to make a career out of the military, to, I just want to get out. I just want to be deployed again. I want to get out of this unit. I want to get out because things are so bad. And so January 27th, what we are hearing is seemingly it was Belen Rocha that alerted the cops that Richard reported to the cops that Richard was a DUI. Wow. I hope that's not true. I hope that's not true, because I felt like I've really, under a lot of pressure and that, have tried to protect her as much as I possibly could. It's just that bad. It's just that bad. Um, because, this is a 17, 18-year-old, right? When they met, they were 17, 18. Of course, Richard was 19, 20. So, yeah, very young. Um, but this is what we are hearing, that she was the one that alerted the cop to the DUI, pointed him out or whatever. I hope she, wow, that is huge, huge information, and it needs to be corroborated by, yeah, maybe Belen will give a yay or a nay on that one. Um, so I'm sure the El Paso police know that. Um, anyway, anyway. And what's so important about that date, the 27th of January 2020? Well, Richard was given a DUI in a parking lot. He was in a parking lot sitting in the car. Of course, someone would have to pick him out, right? And say, hey, that guy over there, right? Um, and there's the reports from the cop, from the police officer, telling his side of the story. But the problem with that is that he never turned on his lights, or something was wrong with his camera, because when police officers turn on their lights for their vehicle, they start the videoing. And in today's world, when you make a police stop, you have to videotape everything. I know in Richard's case, the first thing that we were told is you need to keep record of everything. Everything you need to keep a record of. And so, using all kinds of methods, we've kept a record of everything. And so, it's, I tell you, it's piles and piles and piles. It's so much. Thank God for computers. but on hard drives and thumb drives and printers and notebooks, lots of journaling, and just lots of pictures, lots of screenshots. So it's really important to keep all the information. So there was no videotape of Richard, and there's no proof of any kind of open beverage that had alcohol in it or any like six pack in the vehicle, nothing like that. No proof at all. And so the judge was like, "Oh, okay, this is stinky. This is stinky." And this young man, he has no prior record. He's, I don't know if she knew he was a whistleblower, but he was a whistleblower. And what happened is whoever was working with Belen Rocha, and you have to understand, Belen Rocha is connected to Tanya Katzen working on Fort Bliss, and to her parents, Eddie and Lydia Rocha, who is connected, and we suspect, and we've put that out there because we've been told that they work also with Tom Kane and Ann Ogle and Lilani Hart and yeah, and this group. And so, which is connected to Felix Valenzuela, right? Felix Valenzuela, you have to have some kind of legal help, and they've got a good one. They've got the defense attorney, a big defense attorney, well known, Felix Valenzuela. Um, so, yeah, who conducted that whole thing on January 27, 2020? I mean, that's a huge question. We know that Belen Rocha participated. She might have participated even more than what we suspected at the beginning. It seems like that's the case all the time with her, which is terrible if she's taking lessons from Lilani, creating chaos wherever she goes and hurting people and betraying people. So she has some role to play, and Richard was arrested. It was, of course, set up. It was to retaliate against him, or really to make him not credible in a court of law, because when you're a whistleblower, the first thing that they want to do is not make you credible. It's kind of like what they're doing to President Trump right now. They want to hurt him legally because they don't want people to see him as a credible choice in the election, right? As a credible candidate in the election, or maybe a credible witness too, because I'm sure he's seen and saw a lot of things. But in Richard's case, he was already reporting. We know that through Belen Rocha's testimony, and they set him up to make him not credible in the court of law as a whistleblower, and to hurt his witness statement, or make it non-admissible in the court, his witness statement. So this is, what we think was happened on that day. Why, the motive behind it, because there was absolutely a motive behind it, because it's in a parking lot, right? And you couldn't trust the K9 cop. You can't trust him because he didn't follow protocol. And the judge then on July 9th, 2020, exonerated Richard. And, Richard always maintained his innocence throughout this whole thing. He never caved to them at all. He always said, "I'm innocent." And that is very important to note, because shortly after January 27th, 2020 event, even though he was maintaining his innocence and saying, no, something was wrong and this is an open case, Major General Clem Coward decided that he was going to hit hard. He was going to hit very hard. And he gave Richard a Gomar and made it permanent, which totally destroys your career in the military. So any kind of chance he had to do anything in the military, there's no schools, there's no, when you get a permanent Gomar, there's no promotions, no schools, no nothing. You are then chaptered out. And that's how that chapter 14 started. So, so it's, and we know that Leilani Hart knew Clem Coward very well, that she had worked with him for a long time. And so, it really, all the evidence is pointing that he was part of the Thomas Kane group, the Ann Ogle group, the Leilani Hart group, the James Hart group, the Dallas Hart group, the Dirty Agent Marlon Soto group, the Dirty Agent Tavitas Nusa group, um, the CPS part of that is Claudia Guerra group, the Tanya Katzen group. I would say even the Laura Stevens Holking group. Um, these were all players, which is, the IG office coming into this, family services coming into this, the Anna Whitehead group, the Park University, the Angela Kachurga, the KTEP, and El Paso Matters group coming into this. They're all like on this certain level, right? They're all in this certain gang or criminal enterprise related into that. Seems to me, because they all have to have something to lose in order to obstruct the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier, to obstruct the justice of the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier. To get that low, to do what they did that low, they would have to do that. So, and this research and investigation into Richard's case about this event that happened on the 27th of January 2020, which arrested Richard, and they used that arrest, even though it was an open case, for the basis of all the UCMJ retaliatory um, um, penalties, punishments that they levied on Richard, which were continuous and severe. And you can read it in the report that I just posted on Facebook. Um, how the extreme measures that they went over and above, that shows a deliberate abuse of power, for an open case that Richard maintained his innocence for, and of course, no evidence. And so the judge in downtown El Paso exonerated Richard. Now that, our system moves slow, and so it took till July 9th, 2020, just days before he was murdered. That's when the judge exonerated him and gave him a really happy day. But I think it made him nervous because now they had more of a motive to get rid of him, because now they were in double jeopardy, not only about what his witness testimony was going to be as a whistleblower, as a credible whistleblower, because now he had no record at all. He was completely innocent. But that they had waterboarded him with the UCMJ tools that we have given them. They used their UCMJ, the military legal system, and weaponized it against Richard for months, continuously and severely, starting, after the January 27th, 2020 event, all the way through until he was exonerated. And then they were like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? Because they would have to reinstate and give restitution to Richard for his pain and suffering. Um, so, they would have to undo and apologize, and they would have to undo everything that they did. And also, their whole um, scheme, their whole orchestra that the conductor put together just fell apart, right? Because of them trying to cover up for their criminal enterprise that they have on Fort Bliss. That I believe the main one. I really believe the main one is the weapons traffic, the weapons smuggling, the ammunition smuggling, and we have hard witness evidence on that. That yeah, that there is a connection with that. So the weapons smuggling, the ammunition smuggling, and even smuggling grenades, and also equipment, different equipment. So that was big money, but they were doing more. Of course, they were doing more with the child sex trafficking. Of course, they were doing more with the child pornography, and of course, they were doing more with the narcotics trafficking, right? And that's why we looked at Dallas Hart and his history, and there seems to be history there, right? And there seems to be a mental health history like his mother, mental health problems like his mother. So, his mother is a convicted criminal, Alani Hart is, and yet she's claiming, and there's a report that came to us that she was claiming um, to run the CID, that she had that much power. So, and we know she knew all these people. She knew Clem Coward. She knew Thomas Kane. She knew Tavita Nusa. She knew Dirty Agent um, Marlon Soto, and on, right? And she absolutely was causing chaos at Park University. Absolutely. I mean, getting a professor fired, right? So she's just creating chaos wherever she goes, unrest wherever she goes, um, harm to our economy wherever she goes. Yeah, that is absolutely, we have all of that substantiated. And so, but that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is that when Richard was murdered and Clem Coward called off any kind of search or notification for it, right? All the SOPs were called off for missing Richard Halliday, the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier. Everything was called off, and that's why we were not notified, right? Um, that's why we weren't notified, and that's why it's been a soup sandwich ever since, because Clem Coward, who gave Richard that Gomar right away, I don't know what he was trying to hide, but we know for sure that he was trying to hide that he jumped on Richard to destroy him during an active case where he maintained his innocence, and then he was exonerated and given his innocence. And Clem Coward should have, protected a whistleblower. He should have protected a whistleblower instead of trying to destroy a whistleblower. So we absolutely know that happened. Um, and when he went missing, and we finally called, and I say finally because it did, it was COVID. It was COVID, and not so much the COVID, it's all the measures and the breakdown of small businesses and people losing jobs. And our two son-in-laws, lost their jobs, for that short time. Our, they're very resourceful, so they wouldn't. But for during that time of COVID, it was very, very stressful, and you're like, I remember praying to God, thanking Him that Richard had a job, right? That Richard had a job and was being taken care of, not realizing that he was being retaliated against by the 32nd ADCOM commanding general, um, up to no good, and then hiding the fact that he was murdered. And absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind, and maybe Clem Coward can come forward and say, maybe there's a gag order on him. I don't know. I think there is, by Judge Penny Hamilton. I think so. And the case is sealed under the orders of, and you know, you can, I guess he can, Judge Robert Shook can confirm, or, because we put it in open records, and we absolutely deserve to get that information if he put a seal on this case. So to know that the commanding general is the one retaliating against, and involved in this group, that's crazy. That really is so disheartening. And when we got to El Paso, they kept telling us, and remember, I have live stream after live stream after live stream. This is when the documentation really comes in handy, because I've been harping on this for years, that this was a waterless waterboarding, this DUI, and that, Dirty Marlon Soto, they were formulating it when they were talking to me, because he didn't know what the BAC was, and it was not just not knowing, but it was, you had to be on the phone with him. They were formulating it, and he didn't have his act together, right? So I think that the cover up for what they did to Richard is so criminal. Is so criminal. And what they did to us, because they lied to us. They already knew. And Marlon Soto, he can be a lot of things, like a dirty agent, but he's not stupid. He absolutely knew that Richard's case had been exonerated, right? He knows how to read all those records. And that was his job. And he knew that Richard was exonerated, which put Major General Clem Coward, the command, and of course Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick in a very, very rough spot. So, it implicated them. Up to no good. Up to no good. And then, of course, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe came in, the office of the commanding general of Fort Bliss, and maintained, told us over and over again that they take underage drinking seriously. And I'm like, okay, whatever, because you're lying through your teeth. And they were, because Richard was exonerated, and so they don't take it seriously, because they didn't even bother to tell us the truth. And they wanted this was a political attack, and also a cover your backside maneuver, because they absolutely knew that Richard had been exonerated, and that all of that UCMJ punishment that he received, including 45 days of extra duty wearing full battle gear during the COVID masking, in June and July, May and June in El Paso, that was really, really extreme. And even Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe said it in front of us. He even admitted it. So all of what they did was based off of this set up DUI. And now the whole foundation of it fell from beneath their feet. And, you know, and then they didn't even tell us, and they continued with the charade. They continued with the charade. They made it a charade. They made it a fake narrative, and they told us that they take underage drinking seriously. They told Stars and Stripes, for one, they told many, and they told law enforcement agencies that Richard had this DUI, and Stars and Stripes labeled him a drunk driver. And this is the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier. You know, this is who they were trying to find after Vanessa. Um, and that's how that was the way they do things. And and then they kind of wonder why nobody wants to join the military with these kind of leaders. Who needs enemies, right? With these kind of leaders, who needs enemies? So this is really and I know I've labeled this uh, still 3905 and 3705 Bliss Avenue, and that's really really important information that I want to share with you about these two properties, because the information that we're getting is absolutely those two properties are involved in the disappearance and crime scene of Richard Halliday. Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. Um, and so, yeah. But all the while that we're there, they don't mention that either to us. And they keep from us that Richard is exonerated and carry on a charade about the DUI. That's all fake, because he's been, his case was done, and he was found innocent, maintained innocent. And that's why, if you're wondering why the archive records of Richard is him getting promoted twice and them scrubbing his record of any mention of the chaptering, of any mention of the field grade Article 15. It's scrubbed. It's scrubbed. They just took it off. They just deleted it. And, we need to have records in paper, right? And we do. We have lots of records in paper. But this the way they just deleted all of this retaliation, it's very, very clear um, that they're ashamed of themselves about it, but it's criminal. It's more than them being ashamed, and they need to be held accountable for what they did to Richard, because that day, July 9th, 2020, where he was exonerated, was just a few days before he was murdered. Okay? Before he was murdered, which is related to 3905 Bliss Avenue and 3705 Bliss Avenue. Those two those two addresses are very connected to Richard. Of course, Van Buren too, but it's very connected. And it just, now you understand why Danae came to us, right? Who was she protecting? She was there to protect somebody, not to help us. It was all selfish reasons. Okay, it was not to help Richard. And so when you see all the connections and Boleyn's connection there, right? And this 3705, yeah, and 3905 Bliss Avenue, the connections there with the Roaches, with the Katzens, with the Ortegas, with the Sotos, and then, of course, with the Valenzuelas. With the Valenzuelas, which is with the Wests, which is current Adeline West, and then if you ever wondered, I did, how current Adeline West would have all this information, who's leaking to her. Now I know. Felix Valenzuela. Valenzuela's leaking. I mean, it has to be, because you have to be in a certain status to be able to talk to Director Ford of the CID. You have to have some kind of status, right? So you have to be involved in this case. So does that mean that Valenzuela is involved in this case? Absolutely, he's involved in this case because he's involved with Lilani Hart. If he's involved with Lilani Hart, he's absolutely involved in this case. So that is huge, huge news because it shows that the office of the general, the commanding general on Fort Bliss, needs to be investigated because they're conducting themselves outside of the law. I mean, absolutely, this is it needs to be investigated, and that our son's case is a botched case. We have law enforcement saying that Marlon Soto is a dirty agent, and yeah, and we would agree. We would agree. So thank you so much for coming on, Eddie. Um, God bless you. And this is, of course, Halloween. So All Hallows Eve. This is All Hallows Eve, the day before that we honor the saints that have died in Christ before us. And, so that's why this month we really focused on Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark is amazing information. The timing of Noah's Ark is amazing. Um, if you ever want a little lesson, I can just send me information. I'll give it to you. And what we did this year was so exciting because we made a bunch of different gingerbreads. And I know this is bonus. This is bonus. It has nothing to do with Richard, but it does have something to do with Richard because Richard knew about Noah's Ark. Um, he didn't know as much about the timing because that's kind of some new information that has come out of late. Um, that is just amazing, and I would love to share with him because he was always so curious about time and how we measure time. So, but what we did this year is we made gingerbread. We made lots of gingerbread, and we built a gingerbread and cookie. We had to use some cookies because we ran out of the gingerbread. And we built an ark, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing, and very yummy. It's all gone. It was already all eaten. Of course, it was huge, and there was a lot of people that we shared that with. So that was we do that in October because uh, Noah's story really gives you that picture of um, all saints, right? Those that can get through the storm, those that God protects through the storms. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to burn the midnight oil. Um, and absolutely, that's exactly what God's hand has been all over this and has protected us through the storm. Numerous, just as when my dad was sick and everything else, um, God has protected us through this storm of trying to investigate our son's case and all the vile and vulgar bullying and the obstruction of justice by Angela Kucherga, the uh, meddling and tampering with our case by Lilani Hart, the foul play by Dallas Hart, um, and I would say the betrayal by Belen Rocha, because if she did that, what we're hearing, wow, that's pretty low. That is so low. Um, yeah, to set up a whistleblower, and I think that's really criminal. I I'll let a judge decide, but I think that's very, very criminal. So, and for Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe to withhold that information from us and have his JAG withhold that information from us while he's telling us that it is punitive, wanting to hand me a whole file, how it is punitive to punish a soldier for underage drinking. These were sick people, evil, evil, sick people, right? So uh, that's uh, that's why this case absolutely needs that investigation, right? So, and we're in connection with that office, and wow, we sent a wowzer of a letter off today of requested information. And so that is, we are getting institutional support, and we have spent 3 years collecting the evidence. So, with institutional support, with the evidence that we have collected, that equals accountability. So, that's coming next. And then I wanted to talk about 3905, 3705 Bliss Avenue, who is all connected with those. And we are absolutely, we're looking into, was Richard there? Was his phone pinged near there? Are Did the neighbors say those were being used during that time, those properties? And were there any police reports during at those properties during this time? And on and on. Because, and we've already gotten some information out of there that, the answers to those are yes, yes, yes. And one is a place he was last seen, one is a place where, uh, you know, evidence was found. And yeah, so those are very important places, along with the Van Buren houses. I can't stress that enough. This is all established El Pasoans, and they established themselves too well into a criminal enterprise on Fort Bliss. And Texas is tough on crime compared to the other states. So we're thanking God that they are tough, and I think they just uh, had an inmate that they put to death just recently. Again, that would make two. So this is very serious crimes, and that's why we're putting that out there, because people need to um, come forward, or they need to prepare. And we're not malicious. We're not malicious like Angela Kachurka. I think she's the most malicious person in this whole thing by doing what she did to the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier. Think about that. And whistleblower. Um, she has a duty to the public, and she betrayed the public. She betrayed our country by betraying our service members, by putting them in danger. And yeah, and being a journalist, you just have a lot of obligation, just like being a general, just like being a first lieutenant, and protecting Leilani Hart. What does Leilani Hart have on you? Uh, Child sex crimes, you know, uh, on video in child porn. I mean, why are they protecting this lady, this convicted criminal? Why would Major General Clem Coward uh, react so suddenly and so brash and so unlike a general over his soldiers, who he, has an obligation to care for, and, give them esprit de corps and have their back? And if he's maintaining his innocence, um, why would you go all out like that with no evidence? With no evidence, not even a video, you know? Um, yeah, that's, he has a lot to answer. and of course, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe and Major General James Eisenhower have a lot. And I would say General White has a lot to answer too, and Donna Martin, Lieutenant General Donna Martin, and General McConville, now retired. I mean, they exit, but they need to be brought back. They can be brought back and be held accountable for withholding this very, very important information because it shows the abuse of power and the misuse of the UCMJ by the Office of the Commanding General there on Fort Bliss uh, very clearly. And I would say Garrett, too, General Garrett, absolutely needs to be brought back. Um, and to protect Lalani Hart, a convicted criminal with mental health issues, um, yeah, that really everything is pointing to a criminal enterprise on Fort Bliss that they're trying to cover up. And we always thought it was the human trafficking, the child sex trafficking, the child pornography, which I believe is still there. But I believe the major criminal enterprise there was the weapons smuggling. The ATF was there at our meeting, and they just don't come. Okay, this is, breaking news, I guess. They just don't come. And this is really, I believe, we all believe that this is about the weapons smuggling and ammunition smuggling. And it's a big, big problem right there on the border. Okay, a very big problem because it's so easy to do to go over that border, especially if you have some kind of privilege to get through those gates, or if you know a CBP agent, which you remember that Christopher Meisner, who lost his law degree, his law license. He's part of this connection here that they need to investigate. So investigate Christopher Meisner. You know, um, because he's the one that has a connection with the CBP. And if they have a connection with the CYS, with Ann Ogle, if they have a connection there at Park University, if they have a connection there with the Department of Emergency Services and Chief of Security of Fort Bliss, Thomas Kane, if they have a dirty agent in the CID, and a second dirty agent in the CID, Soto and Noosa, if they have, you know, a, a general that is going along with them, coordinating whatever, giving out punishments that are unjust, weaponizing the UCMJ that has been entrusted to him to cover up or try to discredit a whistleblower, or, with all of the punishments that they gave him, um, it looks like they were trying to suicide him, try to make him so miserable that they were trying to suicide him. This is how evil these people are. And that's why what Angela Kucherga did, the journalist, publisher, KTEP, PBS, that's like PBS, KTEP is publicly funded, and also works for El Paso Matters. What she did is so criminal, is so criminal, you know. And I think that has caused us uh, just so many nightmares and emotional stress. What she did to the soldiers, to Fort Bliss, to El Paso, because, obstructing and interfering in our son's case, being in the position that she's in. It's and working with Lonnie Hart to do it, and with Felix Valenzuela and David Poche. That's the information that we're getting. So this was a collaboration. This was a conspiracy that they did against our son, the very first missing soldier under the new Vanessa Guillen absent soldier flowchart. So the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier, that's that's how she treated our son's case. Um, and she has the public's ear, and the public, it's all about the public. Okay? If they understand what's going on and they want justice for Richard and they want justice for the service members on Fort Bliss and they want real change on Fort Bliss because it's bleeding out, the criminality is bleeding out into El Paso and the surrounding areas and into Mexico. If they are smuggling weapons and ammunitions and grenades into Mexico, and Mexico now in Chihuahua, Mexico has so many murders. How many of those weapons, how much of that ammunition was smuggled over from Fort Bliss, right? And we know that the main shooter, right? He was military. He was under TRICARE. Was he recorded properly? Because we know about the Vivaldi. I hope I'm saying that right. Um, Mass shooting in Texas. You know, Judge Xavier Rodriguez had no patience for the military because they failed to put their airmen on the database. And I think it was a $240 million payout because the military was 60% responsible. That's a big case. That is a huge case. And we're keeping an eye on what happened in Maine and what the judge is going to rule on the Maine case. Hopefully, um, yeah, that's because, you know, they're not releasing if he had mental illness. See, they're not releasing that. They want to know if this, and we know uh, this service member is mentally ill and shooting up and then committing suicide or whatever. Um, but we want to know his history. And this is the issue that I've been making about Dallas Hart, that if Dallas Hart has a mental health issue that he didn't tell the military or the military covered up, that's very serious, especially in our son's case, especially since he was Richard's platoon leader, especially since Leilani Hart was meddling and tampering with our son's file and meddling with video footage and that. Um, yeah, it's very clear what's going on here. And if he had a criminal history, if he has a criminal history and he's covering it up and he didn't disclose that to the military, and the military is signing off on a green to gold for him and commissioning him, uh, all on the public's dime, all on the American people's dime, yeah, there's a problem here, right? And so there's just a lot of questions that need to be answered. And um, I, the team put together um, a breaking news today, and I hope that you share that with other people. And if you have any questions, thank you, Eddie. Um, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But I will be back tomorrow, and you know, God willing, and you know, this whole 3705, 3905, I labeled this live stream that, even though I talked a lot about the UCMJ abuse weaponized on Richard, and I could have named it that, but 3705 and 3905 Bliss Avenue, that is very, very, very important. And it connects everyone, all these people together, which would cause the UCMJ to be abused, okay? Because it's all connected. And And tomorrow, as soon as I can tell you more about what happened at those two places, I will. But I just want to put those addresses out there continuously so people understand. And because it seems like it's more than just Richard's case that happened there. Those are criminal places that we've heard. And, so we want to at least um, put them on guard so that not, at least the crime, lessen the crime and help the people of El Paso and Fort Bliss right now, starting right now. So, as soon as I know more, I will let you know how this all plays out with Richard's phone pings, because that was in the area, him being in the area, I guess, um, and more and more. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.